airport to Egypt, where he finished his memorization of the Quran. He holds a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies along with various certificates and jazat, and he currently is a rotating khatib and lectures at universities, mosques, and other organizations. And our Shaykh is visiting us from Minnesota. So please join me in giving your undivided attention to our Shaykh for the
So do I use this and this both?
Oh, you have both, okay, so you don't need this one anymore.
Does this do the job? Are you sure? Or maybe is this No, I think this is for this. All right. Inshallah, got the young man running sound, mashallah. Mama Barak. What's your name? Zaid? Mashallah. How old are you, Zaid? Mashallah. Going on 12? Going on 12? Never mind. No, it's okay. Just say yes. خلاص كفاك المسألة. الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وأصلي وأسلم على من بعث رحمة للعالمين. اللهم يسر لي أمري واشرح لي صدري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم يسر لي أمري واشرح لي صدري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم آمين. نسأل الله أن يجعل هذا الكلام حجة لنا أجمعين ولا حجة علينا. اللهم آمين. Just by raise of hands, inshallah ta'ala, just to get an idea of what kind of audience I'm dealing with. How many honest people do we have in the audience? One? Oh, it's going to be a tough crowd. One out of a few hundred. Or you guys are just that modest. MashaAllah. Okay. All right. Okay. طيب. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So what we will be addressing first, Jazakallah khair, Brother Umar, for having me back at your masjid. Allah barik, Jazakallah khair. It's an honor to be here. Jazakumullah khair for having me, although I think last time there was quite the commotion that was caused for Khutbah al-Jumu'ah. So alhamdulillah, for me to be back, it's nothing short of a miracle. Jazakumullah khair for approving of my return. Allahumma barak. So what we will be addressing inshallah ta'ala today, I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think it's a very important topic. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of you are not here in vain, that you're truly edified, that you do take something with you, and that it's something that it's applicable, something that you can really take home with you, something that's not just in theory. But I will forewarn all of you here, you will hear some things that you might disagree with, you might strongly disagree with, and that's okay. Because when we're talking about raising children, you can get online today and watch 100 videos. And you would probably find that many of them are contradicting one another, okay? Whether it be in Arabic, whether it be in Urdu, whether it be in English. Some are completely for pro-parenting, and that's the way to go, and that's the only way. Some are for the traditional way of doing things, being firm. So you're gonna, and everyone has their data, everybody has their numbers, statistics, and data, and quotes, and so on and so forth. So if it's something that you agree with, alhamdulillah, there's a chord that's struck. And if there's a disagreement, alhamdulillah. But it's definitely not a matter of halal and haram. When it comes to raising children, it really is, I believe, mabni ala tajarib. I believe that raising children, for the most part, has a lot to do with your experience with kids, your experience with dealing with the problems of the kids of others, what you see out there, the society around you, the culture. So there are a lot of factors and variables at play. It's not one episode that you're going to watch that's going to solve all of your problems. But there are two things that I believe, before we go into everything that we have tonight, inshallah ta'ala, there are two things that I would say they're probably the bedrock of raising healthy, good Muslims in the society today. And of course, you have others who say, you know what, all of this is a waste of time. The best thing for each and every Muslim here in the West to do is to pack up, go back home, go to Egypt, go to Senegal, go to Morocco, وخلاص عم بالشيخ وانتهت المسألة. جماعة الخير, I don't think it's that easy, because as all of you know, things are global today. Sometimes you go back home, they're ridiculing your hijab, they're ridiculing your beard. Your daughter's 10 years old, she's wearing the hijab, they're ridiculing her. You hear your closest, sometimes it's your closest family that are your most vicious enemies, especially when it comes to you trying to raise your kids the Islamic way. What are these two fundamental bedrocks? The first one has to do with understanding istish'ar al-mas'uliyah. Istish'ar al-mas'uliyah, I believe this is bedrock number 2. And I will go into this. And bedrock number 2 has to do with the harmony between the husband and the wife. Before I list, I have 17 items or 18 items here. And of course, we can go into that inshallah ta'ala one by one. What do I mean by item number one? Item number one is istish'ar al-mas'uliyah, is that between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe deep inside that this is a huge burden that you're carrying, not until they're 18, not until they're 21. This is a huge burden that you're going to carry as a parent until the day, not until they get married, until the day you exit out of this world. Because you're not a father. When they get married, now you're going to become a grandfather. So the mas'uliyah of your children, it's never ending. It only ends by our exit out of this dunya. And that's why when you look at, for example, the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about this in the Quran. He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. O you who believe, save yourselves. This is including your wife and also your kids from the hellfire. And we also find a hadith, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these hadith. I don't think this is anything new, where the Prophet ﷺ says, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That all of you are shepherds and all of you will be responsible for their flock. So the woman, for example, and just not to get too carried away, we as men, we're responsible for our wives and we're responsible for our children. As for our wives, they're not responsible for the men, but they're responsible to answer to Allah for the way they upkept, maintained, and raised their children. So, we as men, we have a bigger responsibility than the women do. We as the men of the house, the heads of the household, we're responsible for everyone in that house. As for the women, that's not necessarily the case. In another hadith, من معقل بن يسار, he says, ما من عبد يسترعيه الله رعية يموت يوم يموت وهو غاش لرعيته إلا وحرم الله عليه الجنة. There's not a person whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him authority over subjects, and that person dies, and he did not do his utmost, and he was not sincere in taking care of his subjects, only that he will not smell the fragrance of paradise. When you come across a hadith like this, you really start to think, okay, I'm not just having kids just to be having kids. Because before that was the case. You had kids, so you had a lot of men in the tribe. Your tribe is the powerful tribe, it's the noble tribe. You can get things done, you had them for war. But it's different. The Islamic view, the Islamic centric way of looking at things is that I gotta make sure that they come in this world and that they are dutiful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of their ability, and I have to be there almost every step of the way. Almost, and I say almost every step of the way. There was a man who came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He was complaining, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story as well. He comes to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He says, Ya Umar, my son is disobedient and my son is not listening to me. So Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu was curious. What do you mean? Your son is, let me talk to your son. The son comes forward and he says, Ya bunay, ish indak? What's going on with your father? He says, listen, O Amir al-Mu'minin. والحديث والرواية فيها ضعف هي ليست حديث بل هي من باب الخبر يعني so it's not too big of an issue. He says, O Amir al-Mu'minin, my father is complaining of me not being dutiful to him. However, please consider the three following items. He says, my father got married to a woman who was a magian. She was a fire worshipper. Okay? My father named me Ju'al. Ju'al is kind of the name, it's the name of an insect. And he also says, he says that my father did not teach me not one letter from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, what do you all think he did? Umar ibn al-Khattab, being who he is, he looks directly in the eyes of the father and he says, اذهب فقد عققت ولدك قبل أن يعقك والدك. Leave for قبل أن يعقك ولدك. Leave, O parent, because you were disobedient to your child before you allowed your child to be disobedient to you. Right? And this just shows that parents have rights over the children, but the children have rights over their parents as well. There's a theory I have, and I might be wrong. I say if we as parents, if we're not going to lose sleep over the well-being of our children when they're young, we will more likely than not lose sleep over them when they get older. I want to repeat that one more time. If we as parents, if we're not losing sleep over the well-being of our children when they're young, we will undoubtedly or more likely than not lose sleep over their well-being when they get older. Now some of you are like, طيب يا Shaykh, where's هذا المتن فأين الشرح? Here's the sharh. Today, if you're not worried about your children, if you're not worried about what your son is doing at midnight, if you're not worried about your daughter walking in at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, if you're not worried about who they're befriending and what they're doing outside, you're going to have sleepless nights when they get older, when they run away from home, and when they say, I'm leaving Islam, or when the other says, I can't stand you anymore. That's when you start losing sleep. Losing sleep. And again, I as a parent, I have 3 kids myself. If you're not laying your head down each and every night, worrying about them, there's something not right. And I speak here as a parent. That's intro number 1. Intro number 2 has to do, I believe, the fundamental building block of raising good, healthy, strong, confident, not apologetic Muslims is there has to be harmony between the wife and the husband. Now I know for some, you might say that I don't have that. It's missing, it's devoid in my household. I'd say qadar Allah, but I just want to put that out there, and perhaps maybe we can make an amend and try to reinstitute that if we can, inshallah ta'ala. Harmony between wife and women. What do I mean by that? Some men have the idea that the man of the house is here, the wife is here, and the kids are here. Some men, practicing Muslim men, have the idea that the household, the way things ought to operate, the man is here, the wife is here, and the kids are here. Or maybe there's a different way of looking at it. The husband is here, the wife is here, and the kids are here. So he looks at his wife as if she's just one of the children in the house. This is bad. This is bad. The Islamic way, it's not that the wife is here and the husband's here. La. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and I know I'm not being politically correct here, forgive me, that's just, we can't get too far with being politically correct, okay? The husband is here. He has a degree over his wife. وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. The husband is here. The wife is just a little bit below. Below in the sense that the husband has more responsibilities to carry out more than the wife does. This does not give us men the green light to be tyrannical or to be savages at home or to lower or to reduce what they are. I just want to give that out there, that there has to be harmony between the husband and wife. Harmony A, no arguing or rebuking one another in front of the kids. Okay? And a lot of what I'm telling you about, these are things that I institute or I try to carry out within my own household. Okay? 1, no arguing in front of the kids. This is just a simple no, no, no. If you have disagreements, there's a time for it. You close the room or you delay it and you wait later on. I think all of us are mature enough to delay the argument or the bickering back and forth, the disagreements. These are things that we can delay for later on. What happens is that when the kids see that, they feed off of that. There's someone right, there's someone who's being a jerk, and there's someone wrong in each and every scenario. Okay? When you do that, when you're rebuking, let's assume the husband did something wrong. Let's assume the wife overstepped her boundaries or the husband overstepped his boundaries. You as a husband, you do not correct your wife in front of the kids. You as a wife, you don't correct your husband in front of the kids either. You overlook it, you act as if it didn't happen, and then later on, listen, I think the way you talk to me in front of the kids, I don't think that was appropriate. I don't appreciate that, that's not respectful. Whether it be the husband or the wife. You know what? You're right. I shouldn't have addressed the kids that way. But don't talk to me as if I'm one of your kids. Don't do that in front of the kids. Wait until later on. Solve your problems behind closed doors. The bickering should not happen between the kids. Now I know in theory this sounds very easy to do. But when you're just full of fire and the heat is on, I know it's easier said than done. But try to implement that in your life, inshallah ta'ala, is that we don't do this in front of the kids. B, for intro number 2, speak highly of one another behind your back. Speak highly of one another in the absence of your significant other. A lot of times when I'm with my kid, I'll tell him that your mother is an amazing mother. You know, your mother means the world to me. Do you know Hamza, my older son is Hamza. I'll tell him, you know, your mother means the world to me. I'm not selling wolf tickets. I mean that. Do you know, Hamza, you're lucky? And I know someone like, astaghfirullah, Shaykh, we don't say you're lucky. We're not supposed to say those things, right? You know, Hamza, alhamdulillah, you're very fortunate, or alhamdulillah, the qadr of Allah feek, that you have a mother the way you have. Your mother is an amazing mother. You know what, alhamdulillah, she's alert, she's smart. You compliment them in their absence. This is how the mawadda grows. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, طيب يا شيخ, I'll answer your question before you ask it. طيب يا شيخ, what if my wife is absolutely none of those things? طيب, we'll have a separate lecture for that kind of spouse, inshallah ta'ala. But what I'm getting at is that the husband should speak highly of his wife in her absence, but the wife should also speak highly of the husband in his absence as well. Habibi, assalamu alaikum. Listen, shuf. And I don't know who your father is, but from now on, I want a man handshake. I want like a firm handshake. Strong handshake. لا, strong. خلاص. هذا he's ready for a job interview. MashaAllah. Ibn Min هذا. Whose son is this? Who's your son? Okay. فنقول هذا الشبل من هذا الأسد إن شاء الله. طيب. So you speak highly of your significant other in their absence. Okay? وهذا يولد الرحمة والمودة بين الطرفين أو بين كلا الزوجين. Number 3, try to honor the mother the best you can as a father. The more you honor the mother, and listen, when I say honor the mother, I am not encouraging men to be yes men and for you to be the doormat. La. What I mean honor the mother is that you constantly praise her for the work that she's doing. With my kids, she's a stay-at-home wife. I have them at each and every meal when they're done is to make sure, after putting away the dishes, that they go directly to their mother, they kiss her on her forehead, and they say, Jazakallah khair, only for the food. To the point where it becomes a knee-jerk reaction. You're not going to spend your whole life reminding them to do this. You do it once, you're on them like white on rice. For the first week, it becomes a reflex. It becomes a knee-jerk reaction. You don't have to remind them each and every time. And your wife will love you for that as well. Okay? So the harmony, for this to work, for this model to work, there has to be harmony between the husband and between the wife. And by the way, I just want to open up a quick bracket. I see some men, they come to complain to me, they say, Ya Shaykh, my kids don't respect me. My kids don't look up to me. My kids this and this and that. When you talk with the mother, do you know what she says? يا شيخ أنا زوجي ما بيحترمني. أنا زوجي بيضربني. أنا زوجي يهينني في البيت. You talk with the mother, and she says, my husband doesn't respect me. He yells at me. He's condescending. He's rude. He's disrespectful. He's all of the above. Kids are going to feed off of that, and they will eventually, inevitably end up resenting you as the husband later on in life. I'm telling you, do you. If you're adamant about doing it and you don't want to change and you're just rude and that's the way you are, علشان انت قوام البيت and you're the tyrant, you want to do it that way, fine, keep doing what you're doing. But I'm just warning you right now that if you're going to keep treating her and trampling and running over her, this is probably what you're going to get later on. And I say this especially to the men who go back home and they bring the wife here on a visa and she has no one here. And you're just rude and that's the way you are. I'm addressing the men, specifically the men who go back home and they come here. But I'm just warning you right now that if you're going to keep treating her, shut your mouth, that's my mom. You be quiet and respect her. This is probably what you're going to get later on. So she's like, literally, she's like the maid there. No attention, no bonding, no emotional communication. Allah, she's like the maid, right? And then when she says this is not right, the husband will scream out, oh, this is not how this works. Okay? So those are two things that I wanted to quickly get out of the okay. Number 1, being present as a parent, whether you are the father or the mother in the relationship. And what I mean here specifically, to narrow all of this down, we have to put our phones away. Right? Listen, we have to put our phones away. I get women who will reach out to me. Shaykh, I don't know what to do with my husband anymore. What's going on? He's at home. He sits there with us in the living room. And this is all he does for hours. Oh, great. Yeah, great. You got a nice haircut. Great job. You got a team. They're proud of you all. We have to put And he's fixated. It's as if his eyeballs are going to drop right in the center of the phone. Right? You're not present like that. You're not present. These phones, I'm telling you, these phones have destroyed many couples and continue to destroy the lives of a lot of couples because of the phone. He's surfing for hours on end or doing whatever it is he's doing. Okay? So being present is very, very important, is that you're there, you're involved. What I try to do, brothers and sisters, is that if I'm on my phone, I hear my kids coming in the room, I put it aside. I do not want my kids to grow up, and the only thing that's imprinted in their psyche is, the only thing I can remember about my father when I was young is every time I would turn around, I would see him and he has his phone in his hand. I don't want to leave this dunya, and this is what's imprinted in the psyche of my children. Because some of us are like that. Let me even take this, this has nothing to do with this. Some brothers will invite you over. They're hosting you for dinner. And you know what they're doing? Well, I hope you like the food. It was good, wasn't it? Inshallah. No, just check. Why did you invite me? Please, don't invite me. Like I'm telling you, these phones have gotten the best of us. Be present when you're there be active, be alert, be present in the moment. Number 2, be accessible and have open communication. I remember the older generation, we didn't have this policy. We couldn't just knock on the door and talk to dad and say, Baba, Mama, we gotta talk. I've had this problem in school. We didn't have this luxury. And that created a lot of problems, because if you don't have this open communication policy with your children, yes, when we're talking about boyfriends, yes, when we're talking about girlfriends, yes, when we're talking about intimacy, a lot of these things, our parents didn't sit us down there and say, listen, son, wallah, habibi, we gotta talk. Ta'al. We didn't grow up like this. We didn't. These are things that you just had to keep your mouth closed. You had to just somehow learn on your own. If you wanted to speak about these things, anta qalil al-adab. This is an extreme. It's an extreme. So your kids, if you don't have that open door policy, if they don't have access to you, or if they're afraid of raddat fi'lik, if they're afraid that, you know what, no. I went to dad last time and I brought up a matter to him and he yelled in my face, he started screaming, I'm never going back to him again. This is when you shoot yourself in the foot as a father. Is that your kid is truly looking for sincere advice. The minute he or she comes knocking at the door, you scream in their face, أنت والله حمار. خاصة the Arab fathers, they kind of do the, وش أنت بهيم وش والله أنت حمار. كيف تسوي؟ But the son here already, he acknowledges. Il a avoué. He agrees that he made a mistake. He's coming to you because he doesn't have anyone else to talk to. When you shut them down like that and you scream in their face, what's going to happen next time? They're not going to feel welcome to come and talk to you about their problems. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, we don't want to hear it. But I'd rather my son come and tell me that he did something with this girl or this boy than for them to go seek advice online, on social media, or from someone else. Be accessible. And do you know what it means to be accessible? You have to build that relationship with your children. You guys get where I'm going with this. Some people, they're not approachable. Some people, they're just not approachable. Some parents build up a blockade so much so that their kids can never approach them regarding anything. So it's your job as a parent to break that barrier and to create that communication for them so they can come to you and not go to someone else. Number 3, ask your kids about things. Ask your kids. If you're doing anything, just get your kids' opinion. It doesn't hurt. If you're going somewhere, hey, where do you guys want to go? Do you guys think we should go here first or go there first? هذا من باب المشاركة. That's all it is. You're not asking them about a house. You're just engaging your children. And this happened with Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in the most important sacrifice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recounts in Surah As-Saffat. When he was commanded to slaughter his own child, what does he do? قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى. He says, oh son, I see in my dream that I'm offering you as a sacrifice. What are your thoughts? What do you think? So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, although it's a task he's commanded to carry out by Allah, he's still going to his son and saying, he doesn't go to him, I was commanded to offer you as a sacrifice. I'm just giving you a heads up. No, he asks him, ماذا ترى? What are your thoughts? What do you think about this? Right? Ask them. It's okay to ask them. It's not going to take away from your manhood. Number 4, having non-Muslim friends. Okay. I know it's difficult, especially for people who came from back home and they got a visa. They feel like they just have to go with the flow because they feel indebted to this country. They let me in and now you're going to tell me that my kids should not be having non-Muslim friends. Brothers and sisters, there are certain things that we as Muslim parents, if we're going to continue living in this country, we have to really get a grip. We have to stand tall, suck it in, and move forward. I know it's not easy, especially if you're the only Muslim in that neighborhood, or if you're the only Muslim at that job, or if you're the only Muslim in that community, or that residence, or call it whatever you want. It's difficult. Years ago, it wouldn't have been a problem. Do you know why? Because years ago in the West, I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, in a regular non-Muslim household, there's the father, there's the mother, and then there are kids. And usually they have a Christian leaning or a Christian background. Is this true or not? Today, this is no longer in existence. Today, it's completely different. Your next door neighbor, it's a transgender this and a transgender that. So you don't know who's really the mother, and I don't say this to be funny. You don't know who's the father and who's the mother. Or your neighbors, one is swinging left and the other is swinging right. And I'm trying to be metaphorical here and hopefully you can add the two together. Or they don't believe in God. So your children are next door. They have Allahu A'lam, who knows who, walking in and out of the house. And some of them, you don't know who the grandfather is, who the girlfriend is, who the boyfriend is. I mean, I think all of us can agree that this is happening. هذا واقع. أليس كذلك? So you saying, and some of us, we have an inferiority complex so much that, no. Not in a million years do I want my kid playing with Javid. I want my kid to play with little Ryan and little Jessica. Some Muslims are like this. Yeah, he doesn't want him playing with Javid. Javid is wild and crazy and he's just jumping off the walls. He'd rather him play with little Ryan and little Jessica. But this comes with a price. I was talking with a brother about this not too long ago. He said, my son went to play with the next door neighbor. Do you know what his son came back with? He said, Baba, can I start putting nail polish on my nails? So the father's telling me, he said, I didn't know what to answer. I didn't know what to say. I said, do you know why you got there? I said, because you opened that door. You gave him the green light to have the non-Muslims as neighbors. Now, as friends, am I saying that we should now, because people look at it as a false dichotomy, it's either you're playing or you have to be this staunch enemy. No, it's not a false dichotomy, because someone might leave there and say, what was he implying, that we have to be these enemies? I mean, we have to give the good image of Islam. No, what I'm getting at is that it's going to be difficult. But do you want your child coming to you someday and saying, well, hey, Baba, I want some nail polish. Well, little Ryan next door did it and he looked really, really cool. You don't want that. So you have to try to avoid a lot of these problems at whatever cost it is. Is it easy? It's not easy. But you don't want your children coming to you and saying, Baba, does God really exist? You're like, yeah, you've been going to Sunday school for the past 5 years. They taught you Tawheed, right? That Allah is one. هو الأول ولا قبله شيء وهو الآخر ليس بعده شيء. Well, yeah, what do you mean? And your son comes to you and says, well, no, because I was having this conversation and then the mom walked in and, we're watching this video and the kids will make fun of your child. You believe in God? Like, seriously? Like, you're crazy, man. But some of us parents were heedless. We don't know what's going on. Oh, they're out playing with the kids. In the 80s, you can do this. Back in the 80s, you can get away with this. Today, you can't do this. And even, you know what puzzles me more? Is that when you hear of a Muslim sister wearing hijab, and she says she has non-Muslim friends. Non-Muslim friends in their teens, what are they talking about? They're talking about being out with Brad, and they were at prom with Jeff, and then Brad gave them a ride home, and then, oh, he's so hot. That's what they're talking about. And how that was her first date. what does your daughter have to do? What does your Muslim hijabi daughter have in common with whatever the names are? And have fun. And I know some of you are like, but Shaykh, we're in the West. There's something called community cohesion and living together. And yes, when you see them, hello, hi. And we're going to talk about this when it comes to Muslims, non-Muslims, and the two extremes, inshallah. There's a way of going about it. I am not asking of you to be crazy, inconsiderate, and be a rude neighbor. La. But there's going to be a price. If we don't nip this in the butt now, and if we're not cautious and alert and careful with our children, it's going to come with a hefty price usually later on. Tayyib, non-Muslim friends. Number 5, set boundaries. Set boundaries. And this is the anecdote to gentle parenting. A lot of times, we grew up back in the day where there were boundaries. You do this, you get that. You don't do this, you don't get that. Today, some parents, they don't seem to be fond of setting boundaries. For some parents, it's like that's something of the past. Some parents are super duper ultra fixated on doing what? On validating their children's feelings. Well, how do you feel? Well, why do you feel like that? How long have you been feeling that way? Oh, I understand. Your parents didn't do that with you. Our parents, they didn't do this with us. There's a time and place to validate your children's feelings. But what I'm talking about boundaries is that you tell them that, for example, when people are over, I don't want to see the phones in your hand. For example, it is really disrespectful, brothers and sisters, that when you as the uncle or the aunt walk in the house and your nieces and nephews give you salams and they're walking to the door like this. Assalamu alaikum. Well, it's good to see you. Ammi, finak? Wallah ma shufnak min zaman. That's disrespectful. That is really disrespectful. That's not how you honor your visitors. That's not how you honor your guests. That's not how you honor your uncles and your aunties. That's not how you do it. You're there visiting your own family members and each one is on their phone. Just, oh yeah, I was on Instagram. It's so cool. MashaAllah. This is, هذا من باب قلة الاحترام. Yeah, you look at your children, you say, when we have people over, the phones are to be stashed away in a box. And this is just one example. So, setting boundaries, brothers and sisters, it's extremely important. When it comes to devices, if you're giving your children devices, and it's just have at it, and they have the devices in their home, and they have the internet access to their phones, in their rooms, and you give them a $1,500 phone when they're 13, and they have access to the world at large, I would say you're either destroying them or you're ruining them. I don't know which one. You're either ruining them or you're destroying them. I know some parents, they're so firm that their child does not get a smartphone, but what they do get is a flip phone. Until you can show me that you're mature enough, I'll get you an iPhone. But as for now, the only thing you're getting is a flip phone. So for example, what we do with our kids, they have a half an hour. They come in from school, they want to unwind. See, here's the other thing too. You're living in 2024. You're living in the age of technology. You can't just say a resolute, absolute no to a lot of these devices. It's not tenable. It's not a realistic approach. And if you're doing that, I believe this is a little bit extreme. But the other opposite side is to completely give them these phones. Some kids are addicted to these phones. You guys ever see those videos? You guys, Habibna, assalamu alaikum. Kibak, ya marhaba. Al-hain jeet? Alhamdulillah. Allah yabarak fik. So you get a lot of these devices. The minute they take away their device, wallahi, it's as if someone literally just cut their fingers in half. The screaming and the yelling and wah! Why? Because the mother decided, okay, enough device. The kids know you have a half an hour. Yes, you want to play, you want to do whatever it is you do it for a half an hour. They know a half an hour is all they're getting. So you have rules, you have boundaries in the house. The same way a company is ran, it has boundaries, you have boundaries as well. Number 6, dad and mom are talking. You know how many times you see kids, the mother and father are talking, and the kid comes running, Baba, Baba, yeah, what's going on? No, you don't entertain that. That's not respectful. You teach your kids that when mom and dad are speaking, they wait until it's their turn to talk. And then that's when they say, mama, unless it is something extremely urgent. But when mom and dad are speaking, there's no reason why your child should come running and chiming in over what? Because someone took their bed or someone, for something mundane. If it's an urgent matter, that's a different story. What does this teach them? It teaches them to respect and honor their parents. Your mother's talking, hello. Your father's talking, hello. You do this, all you have to do this. Because some people think that children are not born this way. But people really got it wrong when they say, Wallah ya akhi, صغار. This is صغار. They're kids. Yeah, they're kids, and it's our job to teach and indoctrinate them. Yes. So when they come and they talk, kids to the point now where they'll know. They'll sit there. This happens with my kids. Well, listen, we all have our shortcomings and struggles. The kids will come, they'll see mom and dad speaking, they'll wait there for a minute. When we're done, yes. But for them, you're talking about something important, the mortgage, rent, whatever the problems that you may have, and then they just come and, oh, Baba, and you just turn away. What? Yeah. You teach them to have respect for the elders. You wait until mom and dad are done. That's number 6. Number 7, it's okay to apologize to your children. I know some of you are like, لا بس الشيخ هذه قوية شوي. What do you guys think? Is it okay to apologize to your children? 1, 2. You guys are the toughest crowd I've ever had to address. You guys don't want to be honest. You guys don't want to reciprocate. You guys don't want to raise your hands. Sheikh Yahya, I didn't sign up for this. And you didn't tell me this. Listen, it is okay to apologize to your children. Yes. When you do, listen, my parents, I didn't grow up with this. My father didn't apologize to me when he did something. He'll just, But he's not going to sit there and say, oh, I'm sorry, subhanAllah, are you okay? I'm so sorry, and give me a kiss on the head. They didn't do that. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of us here. Your parents did not tell you they're sorry when they made a mistake. Or it was Muhammad who made the problem, and you yelled at Sabreen, right? And then you just ended up spanking both of them, but one was only liable and not the other. We didn't grow up with that. But what is our job as parents today? Our job is to break the cycle. Our job is not to continue the cycle. Wallah, Baba and Mama did, so we continue to do. La. When you do something wrong, you know what? Wallahi, you're right. We were supposed to go the other. Wallahi, afwan, you know what? You guys were right. Sorry. Do you know what you're teaching them? You're teaching them later on in life, you know what? If my dad and mom can apologize to me, why can I not apologize to my future wife later on? Why can I not apologize to my future husband later on? It becomes easy because the parents are doing it with them. Here's the one time, I was debating if I should share this with you or not. Here's the one time I personally don't apologize. If I end up yelling or doing something that I find out later on I was wrong, I'll just kind of stomach it and take it in. But I'm not going to go to apologize. You know why? I don't want them to think that anytime I yell at them or rebuke them for something, then suddenly, oh yeah, he'll come back and apologize in a few minutes, I'm sure. And again, use your discretion. Okay? Number 8. We're living in an age where playing the victim is extremely rampant. It's all over. Everybody is the victim. Everybody is the victim. I tell my children, I would rather you apologize and to stand tall and acknowledge that what you did was wrong than for you to fabricate and lie and make up a story in front of me, all while I know for surety that you're wrong. So a lot of times you stop them in their track and you get them used to saying, I was wrong, sorry. And it could be the very basic things, but you get them used to that, I was wrong. Afwan. Right? Where 7, number 8, I admit they're wrong. Because kids, what they'll do is they'll try to fabricate and make up stories just to kind of swivel their way out of it. La. Get them used to acknowledge, especially if you know that they're wrong, do not allow them to get away with it. I would rather you apologize and admit that what you did was wrong than for you to sit here and make up a story, although you know that you're wrong. Okay. Playing the victim. Express your emotions. Express your emotions. We grow up, our mom and dad, especially the fathers, we grew up with that tough love. The dad didn't walk in and say, Wallah, ana bahabbik. Our dads didn't just sit there and give us a kiss on the foreheads growing up and say, Wallah, Youssef, anta, ana wallah, I love you. Ana bahabbik. Sah wallah. I think I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of us here, right? The parents back in the day, they didn't do this with us. It doesn't mean they were cold-hearted. It just means that their parents didn't do this with them. But to express your emotions to your children. As you're driving, look at your kid and just tell him, Wallah, you mean the world to me. Allah yahfadak. Wallah, I'm dying. I want to see you better than me, inshallah ta'ala. Right? Just sporadically say it. Because some people, when you do that, we only do that when they bring home good grades. Some of us, we only do that when there's something good that they've done. Then suddenly we say, Wallah, I'm proud of you, I love you. It's okay to tell them that you love them. It's okay to tell them that you're proud of them. Remind them of that. And this teaches them to express their emotions. Will we not agree there are a lot of even couples today who have a problem expressing their emotions? Yes. You sit with Muslim couples, the wife doesn't know how to express herself, or the husband does not know how to express himself either. Okay? Number 10. Sometimes, because I said so should be enough. Some parents, they take this overboard and they feel like they have to sit there, explain and justify to their children at each and every turn why they want them to do what they want them to do. Sometimes, because I said so should be enough. You get those moments where they're not listening, they're not behaving their best. Sometimes you don't have to explain to them. And sometimes you don't explain to them because they're not mature enough to take in that information. They're not there yet, they're not mature enough. Okay? Now, number 11, when you have children, you're going to realize some of them are extremely shy, some of them are timid, some of them are egotistical, some of them are full of themselves, some of them need inflation, and some of them need to be deflated. You as a parent, you have to catch that early on. Because it probably can ruin your children knowing that you have an egotistical child. They're very full of themselves, and every time you're at a gathering, you feel like they have to monopolize the discussion, although they're in the middle of adults. هذا ليس بمليح. It's not. Sometimes you have to get them to tone it down a bit. No, listen. I don't need to hear you talking, please. Just learn to be quiet a bit. Yes, learn to be quiet a bit. It's okay. If you have a child who's constantly talking, that's not, taper that down a bit. You have another one, too timid. They never voice their opinions. They never have anything to say. There's a chance if they don't work on that, they could be taken advantage of later on in life. You're going to have to gauge a lot of this with your children. And you're going to have to find out which one needs complimenting and which one needs a little bit of rebuke and of saying, no, you're a little bit too much. Work on yourself. Pay attention to this and that. Number 12, boys and girls are different. Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit sensitive, right? Are you guys ready to record? Boys and girls are different, okay? We're living in an age, brothers and sisters, where there is an onslaught on men. There is truly a drive to emasculate the average 21st century man. There is a drive, there is a motive, there is a reason to emasculate men today. Okay? So much so that if you yelled one time, you have anger issues, you have to go see the psychotherapist. If there's a little issue that happened in the home, suddenly that's trauma. I gotta go see a therapist. If I'm feeling a little bit anxious, now I gotta start taking pills. So what I'm getting at is the hyperbole is real. Okay? You have women as well. They're trying to have women become masculine. Okay? So you have masculine women and you have effeminate men. And you as a parent have to pay attention to these things. There are certain things that you would probably rather have your daughter do at home, and there are certain things that you would probably rather have your son do at home. And some of you are like, okay, Tayyib, well, what do you mean by all this? Okay, before I forget this one point. You know what was wrong in the previous generation? Is that the rajal ida kharaj, is that the young man, if he left, He went with girls, he went bar hopping, he went clubbing, he went out with girls, and the father knows. Bas huwa rajal. He's a man, it doesn't really hurt. And he comes back each and every night around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. This creates resentful women. هذا haram. This is not right. I know of certain women who ran away from home because of that. And when she was asked, why did you run away? She said, because the favoritism that was exhibited towards my brother was something I could no longer tolerate. I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything, and my brother was running around from bar to bar, from club to club, girls on the phone, messages from random girls, and she couldn't do any of that. وَلِذَلِكَ, again, men, we have to break the cycle. We as men, we have to break the cycle. ما ينفع. But here's another extreme as well. Now you have the extreme where you have certain parents who sends his daughter out in her prime at 10, 11 o'clock at night to go to the grocery store while the man of the house is at home, or there are elderly adult male figures in the home, but the daughter goes out and she looks at her father, and the father probably doesn't want her to do that. And she says, why? Because I'm a girl? Yes, because you're a girl. Hello? Yes, because you're a girl. You don't go out at 10, 11 o'clock at night to some random grocery store while your father's at home and your brother's at home, and we're sending out our young, youthful women in their prime. This is... I'm trying, and it's hard. Or our daughters are going out to random cafes during the month of Ramadan at 2 o'clock in the morning, talking about they're getting sahur with their girlfriends. I'm a man and I have problems with leaving to certain places at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sending my daughter with her other youthful girls in their prime. Eid ya jama'ah, this is Eid. You can put me on Memorize TV, listen, CNN, I'm okay with that. This is Eid. From what I've always known is that men preyed on women, women didn't prey on men. And this is where we lose the plot, when we become too much on the egalitarian side, so much so that even our intuition we have to kind of suppress, and we have to block, and we have to act like, no, Muhammad left last night, no, you can leave tonight. No, this is not how things work. And Jama'at al-Khair, I remember growing up, if it was after Maghrib, there was always a male figure that would go to the school to pick up the sister, the woman, the cousin, the wife. There was always a male figure there to chaperone her. And why is this? Billah alaykum, why is this? Is this because we want to infringe on a woman's liberty and freedom? No, it's to protect her. Because you're worried about your daughter being in an empty parking lot at 9, 10 o'clock at night. It is out of worry, out of love, out of jealousy, healthy ghaira, and concern that you want to be there to give your daughter a ride home. Today, when you say this, some of you might even be looking at me like, yeah, we can't have this guy here next time. I talk to Muslims and they look at me like, bro, come on, dude, are you serious? Yeah, I'm really serious, yes. So that's why raising daughters, it's not like raising young men. When it comes to the physical things, and that's why when we're talking about men being emasculated, and women, they're starting to become more ferocious and more in your face and more like they're somewhat nasty. Like in your face, there's that modesty is starting to slowly but surely vanish. You know, that meek look of that we men, I think any man in his natural fitraic state would love and appreciate for a woman to be in her feminine, for her to be weak. That's appealing for us men. But sometimes men find themselves married with women who behave and act like men. So we as parents, what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is that we as parents have to pay close attention to these things and make sure that we go above and beyond, that my son is not too soft. That when he's at the masjid next to you, that you don't I'm going to bring him to the masjid, but inshallah I'm going to give him, you don't give him a device so he can busy himself. And I'm not going to lie, I'm very impressed by the young men here. But you go to a masjid sometimes, and the son, He has to be entertained with something. فين المانع has to tell him, get up, stand up. It's okay, we have another half hour. Duke it out. Pull yourself together. Men more than girls need to hear this kind of language, especially today. So when the groceries are being taken out, I'm not going to have my 9-year-old daughter take the packet of water. I'm going to have my son do it because of how difficult it is. I'm not going to ask my daughter to do it. It is going to be the man who's going to do it. The taking out the garbage, that whatever the case may be, there are certain things that we can still carry out. You can call me traditional. You can call me backwards. I'm okay with that. But imitate. Listen, I wasn't planning on bringing this up. Even when it comes to the cartoons, you have to filter through these things as a father or as a mother. You have to filter to see what it is they're watching. Okay? I could list about 4 or 5 animated cartoons that are out there that constantly portray that the woman, the female, is the go-getter. The female is the one who's got it all figured out. The female is the courageous one. And the man is like this buffoon. He's like the idiot. He just doesn't have it figured out. He's afraid. He's really, genuinely afraid. Oh my God, I'm gonna fall. And what does she do? She's like the mockingbird. You guys see Rio? You guys ever see the bird Rio? The Brazilian macaw. Is that what it's called? Rio? Did you see it? Okay. Did you see it? What was it called? Rio? Yeah. Rio, basically, it's this domestic, subhanAllah, it was a story about a domesticated bird living in a library in a cage. There were only 2 left in the world. It was a domesticated bird in a library in Minnesota. SubhanAllah, just happened to be in Minnesota. And the female bird was in the middle of the jungle in Brazil somewhere, flying with the lions and just and he gets to Brazil and he's like this very timid, extra soft, oh no, oh my God, this is so scary. And she's looking at him like, pull yourself together. We're going to do this. Come on. And guess what? It's common to see men like this in society. Billahi alaykum, tell me if I'm exaggerating. I used to have a job years ago, and when it came to the sign, and I swear by Allah, men were like this. They're genuinely afraid of their wives. If you're in a relationship and you're afraid of your wife, I don't know if it could get more toxic than that. No one should be afraid of the other. But I'm sorry, I just cannot, that's not something I can tolerate. You guys ever see those videos of the women, the way they're dressing their men? Well, this is not what I wanted. Like just sassy and the husband is, you could tell he's genuinely afraid. But honey, I thought this is really what you wanted. And he's like this. Why are you shivering and she's not? Why is it not the opposite way around? I don't think it should be the opposite way around. But why is she not using any filters and you're sitting there like you're going to fall off of your chair? Honey, I'm sorry. I really didn't know that. And he's just, yes, I'm telling you, we've been indoctrinated big time. So there are certain things you want to differentiate. You want your daughter to be feminine. You want her to be, yes, you want her to have a strong personality, but you still want her to be feminine. You want her to appreciate something called modesty, being low, just having a low voice, not wanting to be seen by everybody and anybody and speaking in a loud voice. You know, I talk with a lot of men, and these men are in their mid-30s. They're accomplished. They got very good jobs. They're college graduates. They have a lot going on for themselves. They're having a hard time getting married. And you know what comes up? Yeah, Shaykh, I don't know why. I just cannot seem to find a woman who first is going to allow me to be the man of the house, who's going to accept the traditional role and is okay wearing hijab, and she's okay with staying at home. I cannot find this woman. I'm not here to tell you they don't exist. But we as Muslims, we can't be zombies living here and, oh, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, I go to the... You have to be alert. You have to look at what's going on. You have to pay attention and be vigilant as to what's going on around us. Okay, number 13, stop feeding into the exaggeration of your children. Remember when I said earlier, and I think it was a little bit too soon, I spoke a little bit too soon. Today, like for me, I wouldn't be surprised if someone sends me an email and says, Shaykh, I really think you have anger issues. You should go see a psychotherapist. I was at your lecture last night and you went off. I think you have anger issues. Okay? Today, any small thing happens, it becomes trauma. It becomes anger issues. It becomes abuse. The husband, he yelled at home one time because he saw his wife watching something that's haram. Oh, she's on the phone. It's abuse. He's abusive. He told me that he wants me to get up and pray Fajr on time. He's an abusive. He's abusing me emotionally and religiously. So you have a lot of these words, right, that are being thrown left, right, and center. What do I mean by exaggeration? Have you guys ever had your children tell you, Mama, subhanAllah, I'm going to die. I'm so thirsty. And you just took them to the park for half an hour. You kids do this? No? No? What kind of kids do y'all have? طيب أنا عندي Arab kids كمان. The exaggeration today is beyond belief. Okay, your kids will exaggerate. Oh my God, I'm dying. I'm so hungry. You know what some parents do? They feed into that hyperbole. They feed into that exaggeration. So they go to the park, they play it on the dumbbells or they play it on the monkey bars. Half an hour later, sure, they're thirsty. I'm dying of thirst. Some parents, they drop everything and anything. They go to the nearest gas station. Oh, my daughter, she's so thirsty. I got to get her a bottle of water. She's going to die. She's dehydrated, okay? Or you can say, listen, stop your exaggeration. We're 10 minutes away from home. Ya Jama'at al-Khair, teach your children sabr. This idea of constant gratification, it's going to ruin them. Do you know why? Because real life is not going to offer them that. Real life is going to require, necessitate, and mandate that they're patient and patient and patient and patient some more. So do not feed into their exaggerations. You're going to have kids, they're going to exaggerate a lot. Don't feed into it. Okay? I don't know if I should. Okay. Number 14. Not everything is ADHD. Not everything needs a medical diagnosis. You have some parents, the child is not able to focus. The child is not listening. The child doesn't want to communicate. The child doesn't want to do the homework. The child is rude. The child is disrespectful. The child is off the chains. The child is unhinged. And do you know what? All of those possibilities are completely dismissed. They're overlooked. You know what? I think my child is, he has ADHD. Have you ever thought that maybe your child is just not very well educated? Maybe he's not brought up the correct way. Maybe your child lacks discipline. And what we do, and of course these institutions, they'll happily medicate our children. They have a customer for life. Here you thought you had a small issue with a discipline problem concerning your child. Suddenly it's not that. Suddenly, oh, they have ADHD. And when you look, it really isn't that. You have a child who's in 6th grade running off the walls, excited and running around. And isn't that what a typical 6th grader should do? So what I'm saying for you parents, do not rush to start medicating your children. Because they will happily diagnose you with whatever it is so long as you can become a life. And I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but not everything is ADHD. And of course, you can ADHD, whatever other diseases or illnesses, mental disorders that they have out there. I'm not saying here that there's no such thing as ADHD. This is not what I'm getting at. But we should not rush to getting our children medicated simply because we see something that is not right. Number 15, this is something that I personally do. Facial expressions when you want to disapprove of something. When you don't approve of something, your facial expression should say it all. Okay, what do I mean by this? You're in the mall, you're out in public, you see something, let's just to be politically correct, you see something that's un-Islamic, whether it be the way the hair is done, the way they look, they're just not, Islamically, we don't approve of it. You guys know where I'm going with this? Ever since my children were, as long as I can remember, every time, or if I would see a man wearing earrings, for example, and you would see things that you're just like, okay, that's not Islamic. I would make a remark between myself and I, but I want to make sure that my kids are listening to me. Will I make a remark to that person? No. I'll just say things along the lines of, A'udhu billah, Astaghfirullah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Now I know some of you have been taught to do things the other way. Well, Shaykh, doesn't that make us judgmental and we think we're better than? Listen, you want to live with that motto? Have at it. Have at it. That's how you want to live? Have at it. With that whole, we're not supposed to judge. Have at it. My kids, I was in a drive-thru one time, and I could see the person with all this blue, whatever, astaghfirullah al-azim stuff, right? My daughter in the back seat says, A'udhu billah. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to wait to have this serious, in-depth conversation with them about certain things. They're going to know, Dad ain't playing that. Dad is not going to tolerate that haircut. Dad is not going to tolerate that image. Dad is not going to tolerate this or that or whatever the case may be. When you do that, your body language is doing all of the work for you. In all you're doing, when you see munkar, when you see something that's haram, is that not the right thing to say? A'udhu billah, right? Astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah, right? You say these things, alhamdulillah, alladhi afana mimma ibtalahum bihi wa fadal. You see, and that is you expressing your disapproval of what is out there. Again, these are things that you can use. If it's something that you want to dismiss and not use, that you're also welcome to do that as well. Okay, number 16. This is where it gets a little bit exciting. Your priorities, your children, and I talked about it at the khutbah when I was here 2 or 3 months ago. Your children are going to feed off of your body language when it comes to what is a priority in your worldview. Okay? Your children already know what priorities you have in life, whether it be worldly priorities or whether it be religious priorities. Okay? Your children know what they can and cannot get away with, just by your body language. Okay? You have parents, and forgive me for being a little bit maybe redundant here. You have parents, when it comes to the religious affairs of their children, they're very diplomatic. They're passive, they're laid back, they're okay. The daughter doesn't wear hijab, he's okay with it. It doesn't bother him a bit. His son is 16, 17, 18 and doesn't offer the 5 daily prayers, it doesn't bother him. It doesn't bother him a bit. I'm sure, I don't want to pressure him, I don't want to force them. Now when it comes to their education, when it comes to their college, when it comes to their GPA, suddenly these, what were once called passive parents or permissive parents, diplomatic parents, are now suddenly tyrannical parents. And they got an iron rod like this next to them at all times. If that GPA drops, I will drop you if your GPA drops. This is how some parents are. If you're not accepted in that college, do you know what shame you're going to bring to the family? Your uncle graduated from there, your grandfather graduated from there, Khaltik graduated from there, Ammat Abu, Jad Abu, kullum they graduated from there, right? You're going to that college whether you like it or not. Now we have to get on the phone and we have to call a tutor, we have to hire someone, we need to do extra hours. Billahi alaykum, honest question. What do you think the response is going to be? Are you creating a sense of urgency for your daughter's hijab when you do this as a father? Absolutely not. Are you creating a sense of urgency with your son when it comes to salat when you're like that? Absolutely not. They value, internally, they value what we value as parents. And this brings me to the one sister, forgive me if you guys heard this story before. She leaves the club at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning drunk. May Allah make tawbah on her. We're not making fun of her. But there's a point that I would like to get across. She leaves at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And there's a brother who has a food truck out in front. Now whether he's supposed to be there or not, that's a whole separate story. The brother is telling me she cannot put 2 words together. She's drooling, she's in another world. But there's one thing she's adamant about, and that is that the meat she's going to purchase has to be zabiha. Okay, am I making fun of her? Yeah. But I want to ask you all, why is she in this mind state But there's something back there that's still coming to the forefront and saying, no, this is a red line. Do you guys know why? Why? Oh, you guys are so kind. You guys don't like to respond, huh? Why? I'm not trying to trick you. You guys are just like really silent, like, no, I don't want to say anything. What'd you say? Okay, you got a Hanafi, Shafi'i. What's your thought? You got a Maliki opinion back there? The friends. No, it's far from the friends. Huh? Okay, here's the scenario. The father's in the middle of nowhere. And the father is a prosa biha enthusiast. Okay? He will drive from New York to California without stopping at a McDonald's, without stopping at a burger joint. We will die on our way to California, but we are not stopping by. If that was the only thing, they will not stop by there. You know why? Because that is a red line matter for that parent. If that parent treated the other religious affairs like this, that woman probably would not be at the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. You guys get where I'm going with this? So, your children, you might not say verbatim, because if I were to ask you, Bilahi, dear father, what's more sacred to you? Your child's religion and deen or your child's education? Lisan al-hal, he's probably going to say, if he were to speak and say it, he's probably going to say, of course, my children's religion. But if you were to dig a little bit deeper and scratch beyond the surface, you know what really takes precedence over the other? It's the school, the college, the degree, the prestige, right? And this is a problem. And this is why, when it comes to raising children, I said this the last time I was here as well. When we're talking about the evil or the disobedience of our children, there are two ways of playing this out. Ana fakir, when we were younger growing up, we didn't pray. Not putting myself on blast, but we're taught to be good Muslims. Hey, assalamu alaikum, ihtaram al-kabir, assalamu alaikum, someone punches you, punch them back. This is how we grew up, right? So, what I'm getting at is that parents, the way they frame certain things is, you know what, Muhammad, he's an amazing kid. He's on top of his school. He's a very good helper. Alhamdulillah, he's there for his siblings. He does so many great things. He's an amazing kid. He's very good to the neighbors. The community center, he's volunteered his hours. But he's amazing. But do you know what his small issue is? He just doesn't pray. Do you know what you just did? You screwed everything. You flipped everything upside down. When you say that and you say his only issue, it's as if you took the most important thing. The first thing that we're going to be asked about on Yawm al-Qiyamah is our salat. But you took the most important thing in our existence, which is the first rukn, right? Or the second rukn, if you will, ba'da shahadatain, is a salat. And there's one act that the ulama, there's a strong opinion that says if you don't pray, you're not even a Muslim. I'm not saying I adopt that opinion, but I'm saying that's the one thing where the ulama say if you do not pray, then you're not even considered a Muslim. Other acts and other pillars are different. Okay? Imagine the urgency you create if you frame it a little bit different. Wallahi Muhammad, alhamdulillah, he's good. He's a good kid. He's doing great. Alhamdulillah, he helps out in the community. He volunteers there. He's very good to his mom. But do you know what his biggest issue is? He doesn't pray. And of course, you look at him dead in the eye. And the same thing for your daughter if she doesn't wear hijab. They have to see that it creates discomfort within you. That your son is not praying 5 times a day, and your daughter is not wearing hijab, and she's going out there, and so on and so forth. They have to see in your face that you're bothered by this, that it's bothering you. They have to see that. And let that be the anxiety that pushes them forward. Okay, we have a few more, and we'll get done with this, inshallah ta'ala. Number 17. Home has to be the place where you let your guards down. Home has to be the place where you let your guards down completely. Okay? What do I mean by this? Okay, well, you guys never raise your hands anyways. You guys don't like to participate. So I'm going to stop asking all the questions. I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot here. Pillow fights. Is it okay to engage like in a family, an all-out pillow fight with your wife and kids? Listen, if you're not having fun in your marriage, you don't understand what marriage is about. Some men عنده عقدة. Some men have this idea that أنا رجال البيت. أنا ما نحط لهالمستوى هذا. I don't go down to that level. If you're not having pillow fights with your wife and your kids on an early Saturday, Sunday morning, you're not having fun in your marriage. And I know some of you probably think that coming from me is probably a surprise. When you're home, you let your guards down. You're the goofiest father, you're the goofiest husband, you're the goofiest person on earth. You let your guards completely down when you're at home. Even with your kids, you have to have a sense of humor, whether it be with your wife, whether it be with your kids. A lot of times with my kids, you can take these if you want. Some of these things you can't really repeat because then they'll catch on, right? Like some of the kids I say, Wallahi, if you're not in the car, I'm going to count to 3 upside down. Same 1, 2, 3, 3, 2. It's the same thing, right? What I'm getting at is that, or I'll come downstairs and I'll say something like, anybody want to come with? Yeah, okay. Where are you going? I'm going to the basement. I think I'm going. Listen, I'm not trying to but you have to be creative in your marriage. You have to make it fun. Whether it's playing pranks at home on your wife, on your kids, marriage has to be fun. There is truly a fun part of marriage that a lot of people are not experiencing. And of course, I know this sounds a little bit too far-fetched for some of you because some of you are probably living miserable lives. There's just there's so much disconnect and discord. There's no harmony. So you're like, shit, I wish I could do it. That's like very far on the list. But what I'm saying is, when you do that, it creates a bond between you and the kids. One thing I didn't mention is, did you guys notice when it comes to children today? Did you guys notice how children talk to their fathers versus how it happened 20, 30 years ago? Do you guys know what I mean by this? Okay. I remember when my father addressed me, there was no filters. If he needed something, he just said it and it got done and that was it. Do you think I sat there and said, Mom, why is Dad talking to me like that? Yeah, we didn't have that luxury. We just didn't, right? Today, do you know what I see parents do? I see parents holding their tongue when it comes to asking of their children to do something. The parents have the filters and the children don't. There's a problem. If you have to hold your tongue back before asking your son or daughter to do something, you've somewhat lost the plot right there and there. Now, am I getting at that you just talk to them? But if you need them to get something, you don't hold your tongue. They hold their tongue. They worry about how they address you and not the other way around. Be respectful, yes. But if you need them to get something done or you're going to rebuke them, you don't have to hold your tongue back. They do that, not you. You have kids today, they're so spontaneous. They'll address their parents in any way, shape, or form. When it comes to the parents, they have to think of 100 scenarios of what's the best way. I don't want to be intrusive. I don't want to be rude. I'm sorry, that's extreme. Okay, that's extreme. Number 18, lead by example. Lead by example. I know this is very basic, this is very common, but lead by example. You know when you're out and about, let's say you're having a day at the mall, you're having a day at the park, how do you instill the importance, for example, of salat in your children? When it's time for salat, you don't look at your son and say, Wallah, alhamdulillah, Allah ghafur rahim, we'll just pray dhuhr, asr, maghrib, wa isha, wallah, nsalliha fil bayt. Allah knows we have good hearts, it's not a big deal. No, when you stop, you're in the middle of nowhere and you stop in an empty parking lot and you stop that car because it's time to pray dhuhr, because it's time to pray asr, because it's time to pray maghrib, or you're at the mall and you go to a corner or you go in the living room or the fitting rooms and that's how you instill the importance of salat. A lot of parents, they want to live their way, but they want their children to be completely different. So the father will sit there for 2, 3, 4 hours watching his Zamalek, ضد الأهالي, but he wants his child to be studious and this and this and that. We as parents, what kind of friends do we bring to the house? What kind of people are we befriending? Before we ask our kids what kind of friends they're befriending. They look at what we do and they simply imitate. They simply replicate what we do. Because they're looking at us as the leader. I'll just end with 2 ad'iyah. There's a dua that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam says. He says, رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَاء. I think this is a very important dua. And by the way, I know I didn't talk about being respectful, about giving sadaqah, giving zakat, because these are things I think that are very, very basic. They're very, very obvious. Being respectful, being kind to people, being good to your parents. I think these are all just basic things that we're all aware of. And then the last wasiyah that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam says in Surah Al-Baqarah, he says, وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ يَا بَنِيَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى لَكُمُ الدِّينَ فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. That the most important thing that you make sure your kids do is that they die as a Muslim. And that's not easy. That's not easy. Here's the thing. A lot of times some parents, they don't even try. They don't even attempt. They don't even pursue to give their children the full picture of Islam. They're afraid, if I do this, I'm going to make them hate the religion. I don't want to tell her to do that because she might run away. I don't want to tell him to do this because أنا حنفرهم أنا بدي أحببهم في الدين يا عم الشيخ, right? You get all this. The problem is it doesn't stop with our children. If we give only 70, 80, or 60% to our children, how much are they going to give to your grandchildren? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? If we're going to give our children only 70, 60, 70% of Islam, how much are they later on going to give to their children? So in essence, what we're doing is we're basically, there comes a time where there's nothing left and they inevitably become apostates. So you give them 80, the 80 gives the 60 gives the 40 gives the 30, and the 30, 3 generations from now, there's no Islam. So that's why this idea of cutting corners, and hada ma'lish, and this is not a big deal, and that's not really a big issue, I honestly believe, even in da'wah, in mainstream da'wah, I don't think this is effective, and I don't think it's right. I think the better alternative is for us to show people, this is Islam. This is what Islam is in its entirety. When you're ready, and you change, and you're ready to rise up and step up to the plate, Islam is there waiting for you. But don't expect me to mold this and to shape this and to change this and for me to give it to you because it's appealing to you. That doesn't work like that. Right? Anyways, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khair for being such an attentive audience and such gracious listeners. I hope that wasn't too much. And if you guys have a different opinion or if you guys have questions, I'm more than willing to listen, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. Tfaddal. I can't hear you. Is physical punishment? You want to get me in jail, don't you? Next question. Shuf. Physical punishment is not something that I would recommend. Okay? Now, of course, when people hear physical punishment, people are thinking you're just, if we're talking about spankings and whippings, people got spankings and whippings years ago. But that's not something that I don't think that's something you should resort to, right? There are other ways you can punish them, whether it's being in their room, taking away their free time, keeping them away from soccer practice or whatever things that they have going on, is if you see that they're not meeting you halfway, is that you try that approach first before trying anything else. Yeah. Yes? I do that with my family, yes. Yes. The brother is asking, is it okay to go and watch Now, again, you have to beware of the content though, right? You don't want to take your daughter to the woman who's going to change the world and she's going to save all the men, and because all the men are futile and they're useless. You don't want to take your kids to Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's asking if you go and watch like an animated cartoonish video. I do this every once in a while with my family, yeah. But to go watch a movie, that never sat well with me just because of the whole concept of lowering your gaze. How do you lower your gaze? I don't think that's befitting. And that's the other thing too is some people, the way they treat television is the screen, it's very different. I don't know why they look at it as though it's different than real life. Like if a woman were to pass by in front of us, we would all do this, right? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. A'udhu billah. No, you guys don't do that here? Omar is like, no, we don't do that here. We say, mashallah, mashallah. Nah, you guys with me? But for whatever reason, when it's on TV, we're just snacking and we're just eating our popcorn. And akhi, you're supposed to lower your gaze. She's a full-blown mutabarrija. And you know, listen, when we're talking about movies, a lot of times the husband is not really fond of his wife, or the wife is not really fond of her husband. But they're watching these TV shows and they got nothing but model material on there. So the wife is looking and she just looks at her husband when she's done and says, قَدَرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. And the husband probably does the same thing. He's looking at, of course, she's got on those high heels. You can hear her from blocks away and she's coming to save the world. And man, she's everything, right? She's the be all and end all. And she's like the perfect. And the man's looking at that next to his wife, and it's not just a movie. And the husband looks at his wife and says the same thing. After seeing the fitna on TV, he just looks at her and says, قَدَرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Yeah. Right? So I think there are a few things that we have to rethink. It's not just TV. And that affects the nature of our hearts, brothers and sisters, when we're watching a lot of these haram things as well. Right? Yeah. But I think that is something, I think that's something fair. I think it is something fun. I think the kids like to, yeah, so going to a movie, watching like an animated flick, I don't think that's, yeah. Any other, yes. No, we don't take online questions. No, I'm joking. Yeah, go ahead. You guys, listen, I've been to a lot of places. And you guys have to be the most difficult crowd. I mean, for you guys to simply just smile. No, I'm not giving it to him. Nope, he doesn't deserve it. You guys are difficult. Oh, now you guys all want to smile right now. After the review. Hey, what's the question? Oh, I thought you said you have a few questions. Do you? Okay. So no questions yet? Yes, تفضل. I think, do you have a question? No? Yes? Oh, جزاك الله خير حبيبي وياك الله يبارك فيك. Anything else? Any questions, comments, concerns, any feedback? Yes? Nobody's asking the questions, so I will ask. Okay. Yes, you can marry 4 wives. Yes. No, I'm joking. Wallahi, I'm joking. Listen, my wife, where's his? اتفضل.
You have a few kids. It's difficult to manage all of them at the same level, especially when they are at the young age level. What's difficult is basically like the needs of the elder kids are different from the needs of the smaller kids are different. How do you strike a balance?
I mean, this is really, it's a 1-for-1 basis. It's very difficult to gauge because I don't know. I don't know because I don't know what their needs are. So that really, I mean, it's very, very case per case basis. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to envision, I'm trying to kind of conceptualize exactly what it is you're hinting at or what specific scenario that maybe you're like. Maybe if you'd give me like a scenario, I can.
I'll give you a quick scenario. So what I found is my eldest is 30 and my youngest is like 5.
Okay.
And what I found is like when my youngest was like 3 years old, I was treating him the same as my eldest. Just because like I was probably at a phase in life where I was through all of life. But then I realized, what am I doing? And I started treating you with more, with easier. And then we need to build that bond there. Sometimes, so what happens is that if we are in a phase of life where we treat all of them in the same spectrum, but each of them.
Well, I don't know what to answer. I don't know what to say. Wallah. Yeah. But I think one of the tips is to be open to change. It's okay. It's never too late. I mean, a lot of people have the idea that, oh, it's too late. It's never too late. I think as long as you have the irada there and you're willing to change and you have that humility and you're not just stiff and you're arrogant and you're stuck in your ways, I think anything is possible. Where you learn, you take on something new, like I want to start to implement that. I've never done that with my kids. I want to do that tonight. Hey, that was a great idea. I want to start doing that, right? No. Yes.
Like for example, if we question ourselves about what we have doubt in us, like we have the proper listen, that I make a move properly, that I'm a system. Do we automatically make our own rule and make sure we don't miss anything, or do we just let it go?
No, if you're in salat and you're getting all these wasawis and you're more like you're confident, you're not sure, but you're confident ala ghalabat al-dhann that you have wudu, then you're good. Unless you realize you immediately like no, I forgot to make wudu or I lost my wudu here or there for surety, that's when you will stop the salat. But if you ghalabat al-dhann that you still have wudu, then you're fine. Anything else, inshallah?
Avoid having non-Muslim friends.
I'm sorry?
Avoid having non-Muslim friends for your kids.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you came late or not, but I talked about having non-Muslim friends. You know, we're talking about non-Muslim friends, especially for the young teenagers. You know, I mean, if you're talking about you're on a work project, you're working at a university, there's a project that you're working on, that's a little bit different. But I really don't see what a young Muslim hijabi in her late teens would have in common with a non-Muslim. I just don't, it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense.
One other question. During this time, especially in offices and it's culture over here that you have Christmas parties in offices. In some offices, it's mandatory.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that inshallah tomorrow. Yeah. Muslims and non-Muslims and the two extremes. Yeah, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, about like Christmas parties. Yep.
At what age should we or should we not give devices to children or kids, teenagers? Should
Yeah.
we give devices or not? And if so, what age?
I know, well, when it, yeah, and I don't know. My kid is 11 right now. I don't plan on giving them these devices until maybe they're 16, 17. And even if I were to give them the device, they're not going to have access to the internet. If I were to give them a smartphone, I'm not going to give them access to the internet. I think that just destroys them. Yes?
But if you give them a personal device, you're going to inevitably be able to access the internet. So why? How are you going to?
No, can't you have these devices without access to the internet if you're just using it for a phone call?
Oh, just a flip phone?
No.
No, I'm talking about smartphones.
Yeah. You can have a smartphone without the internet, right?
If they're going to have it personal, they're going to go to school or they'll have internet somehow.
Yeah. Akhi, wallahi, you work with it. You work with it. But this idea of just having them the phone and giving them free access 24/7 and they're late at night in their own room and that's just destructive. It's really destructive, yeah.
So there's another argument. Some people say that eventually they're going to get access to it, and if you shelter them that long, then they're going to think it's like this boogeyman.
No, you delay it. You delay it as much as you can. Because the younger they are, the more addictive the whole process, the whole experience becomes. So you delay it as much as you can, and maybe giving them a flip phone. I've seen parents do this. It's not impossible. I know for some people it's too far fetched to give them a flip phone, but that's an option.
They feel some of them they're gonna feel like they're ostracized because the rest of the. I'm not for this argument, but I just heard this, right? They go to school, everyone else has a device. They're like, my parents are pressing me, they're not giving me a device. Everyone else, all society doesn't want that. And they're always like constantly, and then eventually when they're 18, they're gonna get it, right? So how do you navigate this?
And I don't. Again, my kid is 11. I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. There's not a specific. See, certain answers. It's not a yes and it's not a no. If you do it this way, it's going to come with some baggage. If you opt out and you choose option B, that's going to come with some baggage as well. Sometimes it's not a matter of an absolute, resolute yes or a no. No, yeah, inshallah. Yeah. حياك الله. Is that it? جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك استغفرك واتوب اليك. جزاكم الله خير. Oh, I hope it wasn't too much.
Amazing.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I can go all night. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Just one quick announcement. I know everyone wants to talk. One quick announcement. Tomorrow night is our sleepover, ages 13 to 18. The link, bi'idhnillah, will be posted relatively soon. Please sign up your youth and have them join us tomorrow night after Isha, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. We'll see you there for Khan, inshallah. Inshallah.